If you're a man over 60 and you've been masturbating every day, there's something quietly happening inside your body that most doctors won't tell you. It's not just about pleasure or habit anymore. Behind closed doors, I've seen this one daily act either protect a man's heart, restore his prostate, and sharpen his mind, or slowly rob him of energy, shrink his erections, and disconnect him from real intimacy. The difference between the two isn't age, it's awareness. I'm Dr. James, a men's health physician with over 30 years of experience helping older men reclaim their strength, vitality, and confidence, without shame, pills, or pressure. And I've had hundreds of patients ask me the same question. Doc, is it bad if I do it every day? My answer always starts with, that depends on what's happening inside your body. Because here's the paradox. Daily masturbation can either heal or harm. It can flush your prostate and balance your hormones or throw your testosterone off, exhaust your nervous system, and weaken your erections over time. Most men are stuck in one cycle without even knowing which one they're in. That's why in today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening inside the body of a man over 60 when he masturbates every single day, physically, hormonally, emotionally, and sexually. You'll understand the hidden effects on your heart, your brain chemistry, your sleep, and your relationships, and what you can do right now to make it work for you, not against you. And stay with me, because in just a few minutes, I'll reveal the #1 daily masturbation mistake I see destroying male vitality after 60. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to hit that button and turn on the bell, so you never miss honest, science-backed advice made specifically for men over 60. And if this video speaks to you, just type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0, so I know how to serve you better next time. Let's begin with what's happening beneath the surface, in your brain. Because every time you climax, there's a powerful chain reaction of chemicals that flood your system. And if you're doing it daily, especially after 60, those brain chemicals can either uplift you or slowly wear you down. 1. Your brain on daily masturbation. A dopamine, control, and crashes. Let me be honest with you, as I've been with hundreds of patients sitting across from me in my office. Daily masturbation might feel harmless, even comforting, but in men over 60, it starts to shift the way your brain works, and it happens more quietly than you think. Every time you climax, your brain releases a powerful flood of chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and prolactin. In younger men, the system resets quickly. They feel good, move on, and return to baseline. But after 60, those resets aren't as smooth. The receptors in your brain that respond to dopamine, the chemical that gives you pleasure, motivation, and drive, start to lose sensitivity. It's not your fault, it's just biology. It means that over time, daily masturbation can create a flattening effect in your emotional state. Some men tell me they feel a little more irritable after release. Others describe it like a fog or lack of motivation they can't quite explain. You may notice it too: less energy to get out of bed in the morning, less focus, or a strange feeling of dullness that lingers after the pleasure fades. And then there's prolactin. It's released after orgasm to give you that satisfied feeling, but too much, too often, and it can leave you emotionally disconnected and physically drained. Some men feel more isolated. Others lose interest in meaningful connection, and that's when this natural habit, when done too frequently, stops being a release and starts becoming a form of self-numbing. I remember one patient, a 67-year-old widower, who told me he masturbated daily just to feel something, anything. But over time, he felt less and less. The joy faded. The ritual became automatic, and emotionally, he felt more alone than ever. Not because of age, not because of the act itself, but because his brain had been quietly rewired without him realizing it. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know, it's reversible. With awareness, change is always possible. You can reset your dopamine, reclaim your clarity, and feel connected again. But first, you need to understand what's really happening in your body, and it doesn't stop at the brain. Because next, we're going deeper into the very hormones that define your energy, your drive, and your manhood itself. And what happens to them when you climax every single day might surprise you. 2. Your hormones, testosterone drops or boosts. Here's where things get personal, because I've seen this play out too many times. A man in his 60s comes into my office frustrated, confused. His energy's lower, his belly's growing, and he's lost that sharp edge he once had. Then he quietly asks, "Doc, could it be the way I'm releasing?" It's a fair question, because yes, your hormones, especially testosterone, are deeply affected by how often and how intentionally you climax. Contrary to popular belief, masturbation doesn't automatically destroy your testosterone. In fact, when practiced mindfully and moderately, it can support healthy hormonal rhythms. It keeps your reproductive system active, your prostate fluid moving, and your sex drive alive. But daily release, especially when it's rushed, compulsive, or emotionally disconnected, can slowly chip away at your hormonal foundation. Each ejaculation pulls from a delicate hormonal equation. Zinc, one of the core minerals for testosterone production, is lost with every release. And your Leydig cells, the ones in your testes responsible for creating testosterone, don't function as efficiently as they once did. Add to that the natural decline in DHEA and the rise in cortisol from chronic stress, and your hormonal balance begins to tilt in the wrong direction. I've worked with men who used to feel vibrant in the morning, clear-headed, full of drive, and suddenly they're waking up foggy, with softer muscle tone and less interest in intimacy. They blame aging, but often it's this slow, unnoticed hormonal fatigue from daily release without rest. Testosterone isn't just a number. It's the fuel for your confidence, your focus, your ability to rebuild muscle and maintain circulation. One of my patients, 64 years old, was determined to maintain his health naturally, but he'd developed a habit of nightly masturbation, always alone, always fast, just to fall asleep. Over time, his testosterone dropped and he couldn't understand why. When we adjusted the frequency, gave his body time to rebuild, and added a few natural supports, his levels came back stronger, and so did his sense of control. What I want you to take away is this. Testosterone can be supported at any age, but it requires awareness, rhythm, and recovery. Daily release without pause is like taking money from your savings without depositing back in. But this goes beyond just your hormones, because now we need to talk about something older men often overlook: how this one daily habit can silently strain your heart and circulation without warning. And it all starts with what happens in your blood vessels the moment you climax. 3. Your heart and blood vessels, circulation versus constriction. I remember one patient, Carl, 71 years old, still full of humor and wit, but with growing concerns about his heart. "Doc," he said, "every time I finish, I feel flushed. My chest pounds, and I just don't recover like I used to." That conversation stuck with me, because what Carl was describing is far more common than most older men realize. See, daily masturbation doesn't just affect your hormones or emotions, it has a very real impact on your cardiovascular system, especially after 60. When you climax, your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure surges, and your blood vessels expand and contract rapidly. It's a mini cardiovascular workout, but only if your body is conditioned for it. If you're sitting still, dehydrated, breathing shallowly, and rushing through the act, your heart doesn't respond with strength, it responds with strain. Especially in older men whose arteries are already less elastic and more vulnerable to pressure surges, this can quietly stress your system over time. One of the biggest risks I see is what's called the Valsalva reflex. It happens when you hold your breath during climax. The pressure in your chest builds suddenly and can cause a dangerous spike in blood pressure, leading to dizziness, headaches, or, in rare cases, even cardiovascular events. It's not talked about enough, but I've seen men ignore these warning signs until it's too late. On the other hand, if done with breath, movement, and mindfulness, daily release can support blood flow, oxygenation, and even improve circulation to the lower body. But the difference comes down to how you do it. Are you treating it like an act of self-care, or are you rushing through it like a habit you're half ashamed of? The truth is, your heart doesn't lie. It responds to stress and rhythm more than you realize. And when you climax daily without preparing your body, without movement, hydration, or breathing, you may be silently tightening your arteries rather than opening them. Carl made one simple change. He started walking and stretching before release, slowed his breathing, and gave himself space to recover. 3 months later, he said, "Doc, I don't feel that pressure anymore. It feels good again." But now we have to shift focus from the heart to something even more personal, the part of your body where you feel the most, yet may be losing sensation without realizing it. Because what happens to your skin and nerves with daily stimulation might surprise you even more. 4. Your skin, nerves, and sensation, the hidden cost of overstimulation. One of the most common but least talked about changes I hear from older men is this: "Dr. James, I can still get there, but I don't feel it the same way I used to." It's not that they've lost all sensitivity, it's that the intensity, the connection, the depth of feeling has faded. And for many men who masturbate daily, that change doesn't come from age alone. It often comes from something far more subtle: overstimulation. The skin of your penis, like any part of your body, ages. It becomes thinner, more delicate, less elastic. The nerve endings that once fired with ease now require a little more care. But when you apply the same pressure, speed, and technique every single day, especially without lube or gentleness, you're not just causing friction. You're training your body to tolerate less and demand more. Over time, your brain learns to expect a very specific kind of stimulation, and anything softer, slower, or more natural feels flat. I had a patient once, Henry, 66, who came to me confused and a little embarrassed. He told me that he couldn't finish during intimacy with his partner anymore, but he could still do it alone if he used his usual grip. What he didn't realize was that years of fast, tight, repetitive movement had desensitized his body. His nerves weren't damaged beyond repair, but they were overstimulated. They had adapted to expect intensity, so much so that real connection no longer registered the same way. That's what happens with daily overstimulation. Your nerve endings don't die, but they retreat. The signals dull. The pleasure becomes more mechanical and less emotional. And with that often comes a sense of frustration, confusion, and even quiet grief. But here's the hopeful part: sensitivity can be restored. Not instantly, but gradually, with intention, variation, and patience. By using natural oils, soft touch, slower tempo, and sometimes even taking a short break, you give your body permission to feel again. Henry made the change. Within weeks, his sensitivity returned, and with it came something he hadn't felt in years: warmth, real connection, joy. But there's another layer to this conversation that runs even deeper. Because what if the real impact of daily masturbation isn't just physical, but emotional? What if the loneliness you feel isn't coming from the outside, but from a disconnect within? Let's explore that next. 5. Emotional patterns, isolation or intimacy. This is where the conversation gets personal, and honestly, it's the part most men never talk about out loud, but I've seen it in their eyes. The hesitation, the quiet pause before they tell me, "Doc, I don't know if this is helping me anymore. I just feel numb." See, masturbation isn't just a physical act. For many older men, it becomes a ritual, a way to fill space, to cope with loneliness, to feel a moment of relief in the silence of the evening. But when it turns into a daily routine without reflection, it can slowly disconnect you from the very thing you're longing for: intimacy. I remember speaking with David, 68, a retired school principal, who told me that after his wife passed, he started masturbating every night. At first, it helped him fall asleep. It gave him something familiar to hold on to. But over time, he started feeling more distant from others, less engaged, even a little emotionally flat. "It's like I'm still doing something human," he said, "but I feel less human while doing it." His words hit me hard. When masturbation becomes a substitute for human connection, it can quietly increase emotional distance from others and even from yourself. You might start pulling back from conversations, You might avoid physical closeness with others. You may not even realize it, but the body starts to associate release with isolation, not connection. And over time, the emotional nourishment that touch once brought fades. Now, I'm not saying you need to be in a relationship to be whole. Intimacy doesn't always mean sex or partnership. It means staying connected to your own emotions, your sense of self-worth, your aliveness. Masturbation, when done with care and awareness, can support that. But when done on autopilot, it can reinforce emotional patterns of avoidance, loneliness, and shame. The good news? You can turn this around. By slowing down, practicing mindfulness, and treating the act as something sacred rather than secret, you begin to reconnect, not just with your body, but with your emotional life. David did just that. He didn't stop altogether, he just changed his approach, and soon he began to feel again. He cried for the first time in years, and then he laughed. But now we need to turn to something equally sensitive and even more misunderstood: your prostate. Because the truth about daily ejaculation and its effect on prostate health is far more complex than most men realize. What I'm about to share may challenge everything you've heard. 6. Prostate health, the double-edged sword. There's a myth that many older men believe that the more you ejaculate, the healthier your prostate will be. And to some extent, that's rooted in truth. Regular ejaculation helps flush fluid from the prostate, reduce inflammation, and may even lower the risk of prostate cancer. But like most things in medicine, it's not that simple. Because when I sit down with patients in their 60s and 70s who masturbate daily, the story isn't always that clean. I remember a man named Thomas, 70 years old, proud of his independence and still very much sexually active with himself. He told me, "I've been keeping things moving down there, Doc. Heard it's good for the prostate." But as we talked more, he confessed to having trouble urinating, a heaviness in his lower pelvis, and waking up 2 to 3 times a night to pee. He was doing everything right by conventional wisdom, yet his symptoms told a different story. The truth is, daily ejaculation without proper recovery can actually overwork the prostate. That gland is small but mighty, and like any organ, it needs balance. If you're depleting zinc and selenium, 2 minerals essential for prostate function, every single day, your gland doesn't get time to rebuild. Combine that with low hydration, chronic sitting, and pelvic tension, and you may start experiencing swelling, inflammation, or even mild congestion in the prostate. It's also worth mentioning that after 60, your body doesn't flush inflammation as quickly. If your prostate is inflamed, it might not be cancer. It could be chronic overuse, silent irritation, or what we call non-bacterial prostatitis. And guess what one of the hidden causes often is? Frequent unrecovered ejaculation. I helped Thomas shift his routine. He took short breaks between releases, added pelvic stretches, improved his hydration, and started a zinc supplement. Within a few weeks, the pressure lifted, his stream improved, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel backed up. So yes, ejaculation can support prostate health, but not if it's forced, rushed, or relentless. The key is rhythm, not repetition, balance, not frequency. But even if you're getting everything right physically, there's one more area daily masturbation quietly affects, and that's your sleep. Because the moment you release, your body sends a powerful signal to shut down, and if you're doing it every night, that signal can become more disruptive than you realize. Let's talk about that next. 7. Sleep and recovery. Are you robbing your energy? Let me tell you something I've heard from more older men than I can count. "Doc, I just do it at night to help me sleep." And I get it. For many men over 60, especially those living alone or dealing with stress, daily masturbation becomes a kind of routine, a way to wind down, relax, and drift off. But here's the part most guys don't realize. While orgasm can help you fall asleep faster, doing it every single night might actually be robbing you of the deep rest your body truly needs. See, when you climax, your body releases prolactin, a hormone that brings on drowsiness. That's why many men feel like it helps them sleep. But what they don't see is what happens after. Prolactin, when released too often, doesn't just make you sleepy. It can disrupt your sleep cycles, especially REM sleep. And that's the phase where your brain restores itself, your testosterone gets a boost, and your memory and focus sharpen. I had one patient, Ron, age 65, who told me he never felt truly rested anymore. He was sleeping 7 hours a night but waking up foggy and unmotivated. When I asked about his habits, he admitted to masturbating every night, sometimes twice. It wasn't even about desire anymore. It had become a way to turn off his thoughts. What he didn't realize was that this routine was cutting short his most vital recovery window. There's also the issue of energy depletion. Ejaculation, especially when done daily, pulls key minerals from your body: zinc, magnesium, and others that are essential for muscle repair, hormone balance, and even immune strength. If you're not replenishing those, your sleep may feel like it's helping, but your body is quietly falling behind. After we adjusted Ron's routine, introducing deeper breathing at night, cutting back frequency, and creating a wind-down ritual without climax, everything changed. He woke up clearer, stronger, and more focused than he had in months. "I didn't even know how tired I was," he said. "Now I remember what rested actually feels like." So if you're using daily release as your sleep aid, ask yourself, are you waking up restored or just numb? Because sometimes what feels like relaxation is actually quiet exhaustion in disguise. And if you've noticed this kind of tiredness creeping in, there's one more factor we need to look at. The thing that often drives daily masturbation in the first place: pornography. What it's doing to your brain might shock you. Let's dive into that next. 8. Pornography, the real addiction. This is the part most men don't want to admit, but I bring it up because I've seen how quietly and deeply it affects the lives of older men. It often starts innocently. You're alone, curious, or maybe just trying to reconnect with something that once made you feel alive. So you watch a little video here, another one there. Before long, you find yourself needing that screen just to feel anything. And that's when it becomes more than a habit. It becomes a cycle. I once sat with a man named Frank, 69 years old, retired Navy, strong-willed and proud. He came to me not for heart issues or testosterone, but because he said, "Doc, I don't feel anything anymore. I can't even get aroused with a real woman. But when I watch porn, I'm right back in it." It wasn't about lust, it was about wiring. And his story isn't rare. Pornography changes how your brain responds to pleasure. With every new video, every new image, your dopamine spikes and your brain craves novelty. The problem is your brain adapts. What once excited you becomes boring, so you search for something more intense, more extreme, just to feel that same rush. It's not just a mental game, it's neurological conditioning. For men over 60, this wiring happens faster and deeper because the brain's reward system has aged. You're more vulnerable to patterns that are hard to break. And before you know it, what was once just a visual stimulant becomes a requirement. You can't climax without it. Real touch doesn't feel as exciting. Real people don't measure up to edited fantasies. And worst of all, it can leave you feeling ashamed, isolated, and emotionally numb. Frank cut back. Not cold turkey, but with intention. He started using memory, imagination, and slowed down his pace. Within a few weeks, he started feeling again. His arousal returned with real people. His sensitivity came back, and most importantly, his confidence did too. If you're leaning on porn every day, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. Are you using it for pleasure or to escape? Because that answer could change everything. But now that we've covered the visual side, let's turn our attention inward. How do you know if your daily habits have crossed the line into something unhealthy? Let's take a look at the signs and how to course correct before it's too late. 9. Signs of unhealthy habits. When pleasure turns into a pattern. There's a moment I'll never forget. A longtime patient of mine, Harold, 72, sat down in my office and looked me straight in the eye. He said, "Dr. James, I don't know when it stopped being something I enjoyed and started being something I had to do." That one sentence said everything. He wasn't talking about addiction in the dramatic sense. He was talking about that slow, creeping feeling of being stuck in a loop, doing something every day, not because it brought him joy, but because he didn't know how to stop. That's the tricky part about daily masturbation. It can be healthy, natural, even helpful, until it quietly crosses the line. You might not even notice it at first, but if you find yourself organizing your day around it, if you start canceling plans, skipping meals, ignoring calls, or losing interest in other forms of connection, that's your body and brain sending you a warning sign. I always tell my patients, masturbation isn't the problem. It's when it becomes the only way you manage stress, loneliness, boredom, or anxiety that things start to shift. You might feel more isolated. You may find yourself finishing and then feeling empty, restless, or even a little guilty. And worst of all, you may start wanting to stop, but feel like you can't. For Harold, the turning point was when he realized he was saying no to lunch with friends just to keep his routine uninterrupted. That's when he knew something needed to change. And you know what? It didn't take a grand transformation. It just took awareness, honesty, and the willingness to replace the habit with something that made him feel alive again. A walk in nature, a conversation, even a short stretch or breathwork exercise. The truth is, most unhealthy habits don't start with bad intentions. They start with good intentions repeated too often without reflection, and they become patterns that pull you further away from the man you know you still are. But here's the good news. You can always change course. You don't need to stop altogether unless you choose to. You just need to regain control and remind yourself that your energy, your time, and your attention are valuable. And if you're ready to shift towards something better, I'll show you exactly how. Because now it's time to talk about how to actually build a healthy, empowering relationship with this part of your life. One that supports your body, mind, and manhood every step of the way. 10. How to masturbate daily. The healthy way, if you still choose to. Not every man wants to quit, and you don't have to. Masturbation isn't the enemy, it's how you treat it that determines whether it helps you or hurts you. I've worked with so many men over the years who thought their only options were to either stop entirely or keep going blindly. But there's another path. One rooted in respect, rhythm, and real connection to your body. I remember working with Leo, a 66-year-old jazz musician. "Doc," he told me, "it's not about the release, it's about feeling alive for a moment." That honesty stuck with me. He wasn't chasing pleasure, he was chasing presence. But his daily routine had become fast, rough, disconnected, and he was losing sensation, drive, and restfulness without realizing why. We didn't take it away. We just changed the way he approached it, and it changed everything. If you choose to keep this part of your life active, I want you to do it like someone who honors his body, not someone escaping from it. Start by breathing. Deep, full breaths calm your nervous system and help your heart stay steady. Use natural lubrication. Olive oil or coconut oil work beautifully to reduce friction and protect sensitive skin. Slow down your pace. Get to know the feeling again. Let arousal build instead of rushing through it like a task to complete. And here's a powerful shift. Try edging. That's the practice of bringing yourself close to climax, then pausing. It helps restore sensitivity, control, and blood flow. It also gives your body time to build nitric oxide, the molecule that drives healthy erections. Make it a full-body experience. Squeeze your glutes, flex your thighs, breathe into your belly. You'll be amazed how different it feels when your whole body is involved. And most importantly, take breaks. Even just 1 or 2 rest days a week gives your nervous system and hormones time to recover. Treat those pauses not as punishment, but as investment in your vitality. Leo took 2 days off each week, started stretching before and after, and said something to me I'll never forget. "Doc, it's like I'm making love to life again, not just chasing a habit." That's the power of doing it right. You're not just keeping a physical practice, you're protecting your energy, your clarity, and your future. Now let's bring everything we've talked about together, because when you truly understand what's happening inside your body after 60 and how to take control of it, everything begins to change for the better. Let's wrap this up. Conclusion. So here we are, after everything we've covered: your brain, your hormones, your heart, your skin, your emotions, your prostate, your sleep, your habits, and yes, even porn. One truth rises above them all. Daily masturbation after 60 isn't good or bad. It's what you bring to it. The intention, the rhythm, the awareness. I've had the privilege of sitting with hundreds of older men just like you who came in confused, sometimes ashamed, often tired of feeling stuck in a loop. And I've seen what happens when they finally understand what their body is asking for: not more guilt, not less desire, but better connection. Because that's what it's always been about. Your body at this age is more honest than ever. It will tell you when it's had enough. It will tell you when something's missing. And if you listen, really listen, you can turn even the most automatic habit into a source of strength, clarity, and self-respect. You don't need to give it up if you don't want to, but you do need to give it meaning. Breathe. Slow down. Let it serve your health, not steal from it. You're not chasing who you used to be. You're honoring who you are now. A man with wisdom, experience, and a right to feel pleasure without shame. And if this conversation opened your eyes or helped you feel seen, even just a little, then that's what matters. Because healing doesn't begin with stopping, it begins with understanding. Take care of yourself. You're worth it.